What happened, Josh?
I love it. You like slowed it down. It's like
That's not what
this is like even more crowbar-y.
It's not supposed to be this, guys. The best part, this is live. This is phenomenal. Why is it so slow? Hold on.
That was some serious sludge right there.
I slowed it down for Herman Stevens. He said it was too slow before. I figured I'd slow it down more. So what's up, Josh?
Oh, I don't know. You tell me.
I don't know. We were panicked with technical difficulties, believe it or not, fellers. And we don't have a guest. It's just us. So deal with it. We were just talking about how everybody loved us too, you know?
Well, you know, what's not to love?
That's what I figure. We figure we'll just talk about arm wrestling for a while. Take questions, that kind of thing.
Yes. Direct the conversation. That's what we need people to do.
Yeah, so
tell us where to go.
Ask
all
us
the
questions.
Millions and millions of people out there.
Ask us questions about ourselves.
We are good, Philippe. Thank you for asking.
Oh, good. What's going on, Philip? I'm trying to connect myself here. Saying I usually never look at comments. I will tonight.
Oh, that's good. I can take it easy tonight. Let you do that, right? I always do the comments so that you can look smart answering questions and stuff. So tonight I'll get to look smart and you can answer the questions. I love this. This is great.
This is good. We're going to switch roles. So, Josh, how did you get started in arm wrestling?
I got into arm wrestling in 1988, and that was back when they used to advertise even local tournaments in the paper.
Wow.
And my dad showed it to me, and I was like, that's awesome, let's go. I was 6'1", 165 pounds at the time, and I entered, obviously, amateurs, or it was called novice at the time, and I went 2-2. And I thought it was a once-a-year thing, and I was so excited. I was like, Dad, I'm going to be ready for next year. Just wait. And then we were on a mailing list, and it was actually Bill and Jerry Cox's tournament, and they did one every month back then. Yeah. So then I was at a tournament every month for the next several years. I started training at Fitzy's, which was called The Cellar back then, and it was awesome, man. And they had a lot more weight classes that were on the lower end back then. Like usually the top weight class was 200 and up,
right?
And so there was like a 0 to 1. I think it was 135, and then it was 143s, 154s, 165s, 180s, 198, and then like 199 and up. So it was awesome, man. There's a lot of guys that arm wrestle that you don't see anymore, and I don't know if it's because a bunch of them were really, on the lighter side, but I mean, the lowest category we generally have now is 154.
Right.
But it was awesome. And we used to get a free T-shirt at every single event. I had like 100 of them at one point. Philippe says he was not born yet. Ha ha ha. That's great. Thanks for that.
I was 2, so that makes me feel good.
Well, that means I had wins before you were even aware of what arm wrestling was. So
That's
really,
true.
I'm the veteran on this show.
You are. When did you stop pulling?
I stopped pulling in 1990. Competitively, I think it was 91 or 92. So I got like 4 or 5 years in, and I was at college, and I joined the Guardian Angels, which is like a volunteer crime patrol in Boston, and I was doing that a lot, and I got distracted, and I stopped arm wrestling for a while, and then I got into all kinds of other stuff, traveled around, and then, almost 3 years ago now I came back to the sport. So I'm 6'2" instead of 6'1", and I'm 205 instead of 165. So other than that, everything's exactly the same.
Even your move? Did you have a different move back then? That was your.
I was 100% top roll back then, and it worked because top roll was still relatively new. That people didn't know what the hell to do with it, and I could rip some people that were definitely a lot stronger than me because my hand was big, and I was really fast back then. But I've had a higher level of success this time than I did back then. I think because, I'm a lot stronger now, obviously, and that does make a big difference as you get further and further down the road. But I did win New England's way back then. I think it was 1990 or 1991. back when they had stand-up and the sit-down New England Championships in the same day. So I did both of them. I won both of them. It was kind of cool.
At the 165s?
Yeah, 165s. Yep.
How old were you?
That would have been 18 years old.
Nice.
Yeah, it was a long time ago.
Damn. We got a champ in the house.
Yeah, back in the day.
And then, you seem to have really focused on your hook in the last, year and a half, really?
Yeah, 2 years, I would say.
Yeah, because I remember when I was back east, I remember when you really first started training your hook. Because I remember being able to put you in a hook and being like, wow, like the difference. Because we all know those guys, like where they're unbelievable strong, then you put them in a hook or you put them somewhere and it's a whole different person. And I remember feeling that with you and being like, all right, I know exactly where to put this guy. And then you were telling me I wanted to develop my hook. And I remember coming down to train with you and I think we hooked for probably an hour straight. And I'm like, okay, this guy actually has like the balls to get better at this. Because a lot of it, it's we've had this conversation on the show, like with Gabi, where people go to a new move and their ego gets hurt, so they kind of go away. Like they're like, all I'm gonna do is hook because I'm stuck at it. And then they go to practice and they suck, and they're like, I'm never doing that again. And like every 6 months it goes on recycle. And I remember hooking with you for a while and being like, okay, I think he's actually gonna stick with it. And I remember the next time I felt your hook was like, oh, okay, he's really, really understanding it. Was there a moment in there where it kind of clicked, like, oh, okay, that's how you hook?
Yeah, there was a moment when it clicked. I wasn't aware of it when it happened, but looking back, I understand. And it's actually similar to when I was doing jiu-jitsu. When I first started, I used to get my ass kicked every single day by these two guys that were both my height but significantly heavier. And we would grapple every day, and they would crush me every single day. And I was going every single day back then. So I was really serious about it. And it took 6 months before I got one of them once. And he quit. I never saw him again. It's like he was like basically being a bully and like just having fun. They would get me in like the same lock over and over and over again.
So he stole your lunch money every day and then you punched him in the nose.
Yeah, basically he kept stealing my lunch money every day for like 6 months. And it was a solid 6 months. And then I finally, I tapped this one guy once, and that was it. I never saw him again. And then, anyway, so it was the same kind of thing with the hook. Everybody was beating me over and over and over and over and over and over again. But, I mean, every single time you do it, you get a little bit stronger, and you learn a little bit more.
Yep.
And then finally, when I started explaining what I was doing to some other people, that's when I realized, oh, shit, I kind of understand this technique now.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think that's a misconception with some newer guys and even some guys who are kind of in the middle when it comes to hooking, is that it gets this reputation of being just a brute force, all power like move. But if there was no technique in a hook, I'd never win in a hook. Mm-hmm. It's a hugely technical move. Like if you know how to rotate your hand through the bottom and how to really engage your back, it is a extremely technical move, and it really almost turns into a top roll near the end of it, with the rotation. But yeah, I it always blows my mind when people kind of write off the hook as a like almost a dumb move. It's anything but. Like if you really know what you're doing, it's such an isolation on the bicep. Like there isn't.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
I mean, Norm and Mike Shalhoub up here are great examples of it because they get into a position where they're basically resting. And they can seemingly stay there for an eternal amount of time and, wait for you to tire and then they just rip you over, sort of like what Devin's doing. It's not the King's move. He's just got a position where he's able to lock out and engage muscles that you're not typically using in arm wrestling. So he rests while we work, and then we run out of energy and they smoke us. And that's not, as you said, it's not a dumb move. It has to do with, the years of practice and muscular development, the intelligence that comes along with the structural integrity that's required for any, really good hook. It's a beautiful thing to watch. And as you start learning about it and doing it more, you can pick up. You actually are fun to watch in the hook, John, because you do. I've learned a lot, watching you with a little pinky climb you do on people. Like you just, every time they move, you sneak your little pinky around a little bit more. I think that is just an excellent move that you don't see a lot.
Yeah,
and very valuable.
Speaking of somebody like Norm, Norm had that great article in the New York Times this week, And one of the pictures with me and him in that position, right? And you remember it well because you were reffing it. But
I was.
That match actually went twice, probably 45 seconds a minute each time. And it's exactly what I had to do. I had to get into this defensive position where all the pressure was coming through here with my palm up. And with Norm, I tried at one point to drag back, and if you drag against Norm, it's just death. Because that guy will just out drag you. It's just the way it is. And I can drag pretty damn hard. I have a good lat and back pressure, and I had to just give it all up, and then come up through the pinky and regrip through the pinky. So basically, it's forcing the other guy's hand down onto your arm, and then eventually you can kind of attack. But if you attack too early, especially, Norm will just ruin your hand.
Yeah.
Because he's locked back here, and it's really locked off his rotation. He's waiting for you to attack and open your own hand up. And the more it gets back there, it's like a boa constrictor.
Yeah.
It ain't coming back.
It's tough because if you don't flash pin Norm, you can see it in every match. First of all, if you don't flash pin him, there's probably a 90% chance that you're going to lose.
Yep.
Unless you're highly technically proficient, and like you are in hook. What you see a lot of people do, like Sasha in that video of the Connecticut State Championships, which almost everybody does with Norm, is they drag him over 70%, and they get to that point where he just catches them and they're totally immobile, and they drag and drag and drag, and then they try to readjust. And it doesn't matter what you do, but if you readjust in any direction other than down, he pulls you.
Right.
And then he just cranks you over little by little, and it's over.
Yeah.
So as soon as you adjust against him, it's done. You have to adjust in a way that he cannot detect. That's the only way to beat him.
Yeah,
if you don't flash pin him.
Very small adjustments. Big adjustments, you're going to give away something you're never going to get back. Devon's very much like that. A great example of that recently, in my opinion, was Herman Stevens and Tom Nelson right-handed in a hook at the California event there, the 9/11 Classic. Was beautiful. Just a textbook video on how to defensively hook from Tom Nelson. Because you watch him, and he's in position. Every time Herman drives and he stops it, when it comes back, just nudges over just a hair. Nudges over just a, it's constantly moving to the side until Tom is on his side of the table, center, and then he drags down, and he had to actually stand up to press through. But it's really beautiful to watch. Every time the match comes back to center, kind of tighten up, and you see Devon doing that a lot too. But the most recent video that everybody's kind of been watching is that Tom and Herman. I thought it was beautiful from Tom because that was everything. Like, those guys were both red line, and Tom, like, if he would have been impatient for 1 second, he would have lost that match. And that's when it's like, that's awesome to watch. Is when you watch an athlete figure out, know how to arm wrestle first of all, but really have the patience to be able to do those moves and not panic, that kind of thing. Because a lot of times that quick, I need to do something right now, like now. That panic is what loses matches and loses hand position and that kind of thing. And especially in maybe I don't know how, I think it's maybe becoming a little more popular now, but like it seemed like for a little while there, flash pins and that kind of thing were very popular, and endurance kind of went out the window. I think Devon's kind of bringing endurance back into the limelight, but when you're talking about flash pins and that's how you're going to win every single match, that's when those panic moments come in. If you're flashing everybody, as soon as you get stopped, you might be a little uncomfortable.
Yep. And Herman obviously flash pins a large proportion of the people that he goes up against, but he showed that he's got a lot of skills and endurance beyond that.
Oh, hell yeah. I mean, he maintained great position.
That's what I mean. As you said, that's why it was such a fun match to watch, and it also shows a lot about where Herman is right now in terms of his skill set and strength level, which means that even though in the polls everybody's predicting Hutchings is going to smoke him left and right-handed, I think that they are selling Herman way short, personally.
Yeah, I think with anybody around that weight, Herman's about 220. Anybody around that weight, Herman is going to give trouble to. Doesn't mean that he's going to win against those guys all the time, but they're going to know he's there. To think that he's going to get smoked by anybody is crazy, in my opinion. I think it's just simple as that. He might not win, but it won't be smoked.
Yeah.
Herman is strong. There's no way around it. And
I can't wait for it.
he's very anatomically strong too, you know.
Yeah, you see that.
You see a lot of arm wrestlers, myself included. I'm not necessarily the strongest guy, like, from center of the table on. You know, there are certain guys who are. Travis Bajan's strong there. You know, he's trained his whole career to be strong here and never be moved. And Herman's very similar. Herman doesn't get moved off of center very often. Herman is typically going to take the match offensively, and if he gets stopped, then it's going to have to work. But it's very rare that you see Herman just get put into defense. You know what I mean? He's very, very strong from the center, and very just, you know, you can see I can see when he warmed up. You know what I mean? You can usually tell something in the warm up, and you can tell in the warm up he's more like, you know, that's his movement from here to here. You know, it's like very, very short, but very tight. So I really just, I think if he's on, you know, real well focused and ready, which I can't see why he wouldn't be, yeah, it's going to be a good match.
Yeah. I think Philippe is asking me what we think about Herman versus Gasparini, and also Alex is saying that he feels Herman can beat or at least give serious trouble to anyone in his weight class right now. I agree with that statement. I also think that I personally think that Herman would have beaten Gasparini easily. That's what I think. I don't think it would have even been a good match.
Really? Why? What reason?
I think Herman is too powerful.
Just too strong.
I mean, I think he's too strong. He's going to overwhelm Gasparini's technique. I mean, first of all, Gasparini did lose to Spanigal, who later got popped for steroids, but he lost to him, and I don't think his power level is where Herman's is. I could be wrong, but I mean, just having watched a number of matches of both of them that I have, I don't think that Gasparini's technique is going to be able to contain Herman.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, I don't think it's a bad bet either way. I don't know quite enough about Gasparini to say anything. I was kind of, that's why I was excited about that match. I was going to do like a little short-term research on the guy. I do know he's a very technical, very intelligent arm wrestler.
I agree with that statement, and I think that, which I think is amazing, and I would love to. I actually watched a bunch of videos because he's in my weight class, and I'm going to Worlds this year, and I might have to pull him. So I was like, you know, just watch the people that I know are going to be there just for fun. Plus, I don't know, I like following international pullers anyway, and he's from Italy, and it's, you know, just, I don't know, I think it's fun. And I think he's amazing. But I mean, Herman's a lot bigger, first of all. Actually, I don't really know what Gasparini walks around at, but he looks to me like he's close to 90 kilograms naturally. And I could be wrong. If I am, somebody correct me. But anyway, that's what I think.
Yeah, I think I definitely understand what you're saying, because if I take, you know, examples from my own career and looking back on myself, there's been very few times where, like, I didn't technically know what to do, or I didn't technically have the hand strength to do something, but I just didn't have the arm. So I can understand why, you know, that overwhelming power feeling where it's like I can do everything I want, correct, and I'm just not strong enough. So I can definitely see that too, because, you know, Herman is a powerhouse. You know, in my opinion, and this is scary to even think, I think Herman is stronger than his technique level, and his technique level is pretty good. But I think his raw power, I think over the years we're going to see it really be honed in, and it's going to be really scary.
He has a very integrated hit, which I love. And there's some people that just look like they hit with their entire body and their soul and mind. And Herman's one of those guys who you can, like, see him stealing people's souls when he hits. He just, like, he intimidates them. You can see him, they start looking around, like, making small talk, trying to play it off, but you know they're shook.
Sure.
And then he just takes their soul by flashing them like that whenever he wants. And it's, you know, I think that's a great attitude to bring to the table too. And he's only going to get better.
Yeah, and he's only like 27. I didn't realize how young he was, you know what I mean? But yeah, I think especially in this game, you know, arm wrestling is a fight sport. It's a combat sport. It's one-on-one. You know, that's what it is. And you know, that ability to shake somebody up, even without necessarily trying to, definitely does play a big part. And, you know, Herman goes up there with, you know, just speaking with Herman in California for quite a while, yeah, Herman's got a great attitude towards competition, which is actually, you know, unfortunately, I think is a little more rare where he thinks. Like he told me, I hope me and Tom pull first round. And I was like, why exactly? And he's like, because I want to know exactly where I'm at. I want to be 100% fresh, and I want to know exactly where I'm at because I know he's going to be trouble. So like I think that's fantastic. I think that kind of thought, like, yeah, I mean, I might lose, but I want to know. I want to walk away here knowing exactly where it is. I think that's great.
Yeah, and I think that's the correct attitude. I mean, that's actually a good subject I want to talk about too. Is the pursuit of false glory, that kind of stuff. And it's like, you walk in, you're like, oh shit. Like for me, if I go into the main states and, Adam Barrett is there and Seth Barnett and Cervantes is weighing 198 and RVJ is there, it's like, and George Sheldrick and Bill Sinks. So that's like who we have just in the Northeast. It's like, oh my God, this is going to be the best tournament ever. I'm going to go 0-2, but it's still going to be awesome just to watch all these people crush each other. Versus the attitude that, I don't know. Some people definitely walk in and be like, oh, shit, so-and-so's here. I don't know. I guess I shouldn't have come. That kind of stuff. It's like, fuck it, man, I mean, if you're ranked 10th in your region, then you're ranked 10th in your region. At least you know where you're at.
Exactly.
And you know exactly what you have to work on, and you pick off your number 9, and you focus on that person, and you see if you can beat them.
Yep.
Little by little, you move up. I mean, I'd rather know exactly where I'm ranked. If I'm ranked 658th in my weight class in the country, I want to know. And if I'm ranked 10th, I want to know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I feel like you're right. The attitude of competition is not always as strong as it should be because people want to collect trophies and titles and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And as I've said on this show a bunch of times, I have 6 national titles, and I don't personally feel like any of them are really worth a whole bunch other than the fact that one of them enabled me to go to Worlds, because I know the best guys are not there, and that does sadden me, and I want them to be there, even if that means that I get 10th place, just because at least I know where I stand. Now in Masters it's different. There's probably not as many people who are 40 plus who can beat me, but I still want to know. I want to go up against, I want Craig Tullier and Seth Barnett and whoever else is out there who's over 40 to be there, just so I can see where I really am, that kind of stuff.
Oh, absolutely. I definitely agree. Yeah, I've, I have that attitude of like, when I went to California, I was really looking forward to pulling Luke Kent because I hadn't seen Luke in a long time, and unfortunately, Luke's got a little bit of an injury. I saw he posted something today. He went to a chiropractor and actually got some good treatment, so that's good. I hope he's back soon. But I was really looking forward to pulling him, and I went into the weigh-ins room and I saw Corey Miller, and I'm like. You know what I mean? Like I get to see. I remember as soon as I went up to my hotel room and I texted you. Yeah. Corey's here. You know what I mean? And you're like, good. And I'm like, yeah, that's fucking right. It's good. I want to know.
Exactly.
And I'm gonna go in there going, you're gonna feel me. Mm-hmm. I'm here. Mm-hmm. And it's I might not win, but I will know exactly where I'm at and exactly what I need to do.
Yeah, that's the way to do it, man. I don't know. I mean, there's that guy, Nick. I'm going to answer your question. Nick asked a really good question, so don't disappear on us. You're the next subject, dude. But I don't know if you remember, I guess it was maybe 5 or 6 months ago, there was some guy in England, I think it was England, England, who was posting that he was the national champion of England 2 times, and he had gotten all these sponsors behind him and said he was going to go to the World Championships. And, Neil Pickup was like, I've never heard of you, buddy, and I'm been at every national championships in the United Kingdom for the last 6 years, and so the guy got exposed little by little, and he was basically raising money for fake tournaments so that he could have false fame and make money. And just today, there's an announcement. I don't know if you guys follow it all, the Appalachian Trail stuff, but some guy just broke the record a week ago, from end to end in 45 days or something like that, and then a few hours later, this woman said she broke his record, and she didn't have a support crew like this other guy did, but she didn't have any GPS data. She didn't have any real evidence about it, but she was, loudly claiming that I did it, and basically, stealing thunder from this other guy. Now, she may turn out to be completely legitimate, although I extremely highly doubt it.
Right.
But it's somewhat of a plague. Not only in our sport, but in general. There's trophy collection and wanting to be the best and wanting to shout it out, I'm so fucking awesome, yada, yada, yada. And the reality is, you're not.
Right. Yeah, and you could be. You could be someday, but right now you're not. Yeah, I mean, I do remember that story, I think, with the English guy. And, yeah, that's just sad. I mean, to think that you'd have to do that. And really, and also, like, really terrible to collect money. Like, it's one thing if you're telling your buddies around town, yeah, I'm a national champ, you know, and they're like, they think you're some hero and you haven't done anything. That's one thing, right? It's like, you know, it's like, you know, have fun with the placebo effect, but don't sell it to people, that kind of thing.
Right.
But, yeah, that's weird. I think things like Facebook, too, have made it harder on those people, or not harder on those people, but maybe made it stronger for those people, that urge.
Yes.
Because you can tell people every single hour how great you are. But I think that's the beauty of Facebook, too, in some ways, is that I've never in my life ever had to worry about anybody who talked about things. So that's good. You know, you have to worry about the people who go out and do it. And
yeah, you do.
And there's always that combination of people who do both. Like that. Yeah, I talk every day and I do it every day. Like there's
Travis.
Yeah, those guys, like I'm going to run my mouth and I'm going to get up there and fucking do it. And also, like, maybe even more brave, in some way anyway, is those people who go up there and go, yeah, I'm probably going to take my ass kicking, but I'm going to talk about it the whole time that I'm not going to. And then I'm going to take it. That's what happens, you know. And I think that's great, too. Because, you know, that part of the sport is a little disappointing for me, lately anyway, is that this is supposed to, like, that competition. Like, it's supposed to be a fight game. Like we're supposed to be competitive animals. Like, and that's what this whole sport's about. And like it isn't. It's kind of going away from that, I think, because of the exposure. Like nobody wants to really risk their. They don't want to risk their beloved spot in case.
I totally agree with that. Like being also, you know, promoting tournaments lately. It's getting harder and harder to get some bigger name people to do super matches. And I'm not speaking about anybody in specific, just in general. I mean, other promoters and I have discussed this, that it's tougher to get people to do it because, you know, some of them have been on shows and have reached a certain level of immortality and almost perceived invincibility, and it's tough. So not everybody is going to be like Tim Breslin and go out and take on Marcio Barboza, somebody he outweighs by a significant amount, and basically have nothing to win except cash. You know, a lot of people are going to be like, well, I'm not going to pull him because what if he beats me? Or I'm not going to pull him because I'm going to see him at WAL and I don't want him to learn my technique or, you know, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And it's somewhat disappointing because I was talking to RVJ about this week. The bigger WAL gets, the harder of an impact it has on the smaller tournaments because more and more people avoid them so they can, at least, you know, the upper echelon avoids them because they are focused on, you know, the WAL circuit and then the finals. So it has a positive impact, but it also has a negative one. Bo is on here saying he can beat John with two hands. Yeah, you probably can beat him with two hands. Yeah, the question is, can you beat him with one hand?
We have about a 50-50 record with two hands. Right, Bo? Hey, buddy. Hey, buddy.
All right, so Nick's question here. Basically, Nick's having a big practice for like 15 guys. It's going to be a lot of new people there.
Nice.
So he's just looking for advice. I run I run practice in my house every Sunday, and 80% of the people that come are within a year of joining the sport. So what I try to make sure they do, we run two tables, regardless of how many people are here, and I make everybody switch frequently so they don't get stuck with one person. Change a lot of styles. I work with everybody on position, structural, and, you know, obviously the safety, you know, keeping their elbows and shoulders square and stuff like that, looking at their hand, basic things to keep people safe. And then in terms of like straps and organization, there's not a lot of it. Basically, I try to ensure that everybody gets as many partners as possible, pulls in and out of the straps, and that it's a teaching environment. So we don't do like fucking a pin fest. There's a lot of slow pulling. There's a lot of discussion about technique. There's a lot of slow motion stuff where you can like feel the adjustments, even for brand new guys. And then, you know, usually at the end of the practice, we will do ready goes. What's your experience with practice, John, and how it should be set up?
Yeah, I think if you're going to have some new guys, I'm going to guess there are some, you know, experienced guys there too. Try to match up some of the new guys with the experienced guys. Don't put the new guys versus each other, especially fresh. Also, you know, I found with new guys, when you're really just teaching them the very, very beginning of a technique, like with, this is how you pull, this is how you keep tight. If you do that for like 10 minutes in a row, they burn right up. So, which is a good thing because you gotta get conditioned to it. But I feel like once new guys get burned up, they're not at their peak level of strength, which means they're probably not going to get hurt anymore. You just got to be careful with newer guys when they're very fresh, and really ensure them that they can slow it down. No one's going to rip them apart. Do it right, do it perfect. And I do agree with doing ready goes at the end of practice if you're going to do them. And if a new guy says, "Hey man, my elbow feels funky, I don't feel like doing it," then don't pressure him to do it. But I think at the end of practice, when you're all beat up and warmed up and all that, you're not going to get hurt. Best time to do ready goes. And I also think that mentally it's great too because you get used to setting up correctly and firing off when you're tired. So when you get to a tournament and you're fresh, you're going to feel awesome. But I would just say, try to keep the experienced guys with the new guys at first anyway. It doesn't take long for them to burn up to the point where they're not going to hurt themselves, where they're nice and warm. And just be smart, slow, be real slow, and good luck. I think you'll be fine.
When you have a lot of new guys, there's always like some machismo that comes into the room, and people will try to treat practice like a tournament. And so I usually tell people what we, forget the ego, leave it at the door, all that kind of stuff that we always say, the cliched stuff. But then you watch them, and if people start to get a little bit too big for their britches, then you just take them to a nice slow match and let them try whatever they want, while you just hold them there and give them some advice and bring them down a few levels, and then let them continue to train that way. Because two things happen when people do that. Number one, they're going to get beat by somebody. And if their ego is sort of connected to their ability to smash people, you're never going to see them again. They're going to quit and be gone, and you just lose, potentially really strong and maybe someday awesome arm wrestler because they didn't have their ego in check when they first got there. And secondly, as we all know, the first 3 months of arm wrestling, you wake up every day after training and think, should I go to the hospital right now? Because that's how bad your arm hurts.
Yeah.
So you gotta watch out for them. Be take it easy, pull 10 or 11 matches for real, and then come back next week and we'll do a little bit more so that they don't quit because of the pain.
Right. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, not everybody's going to be the same as far as how much they're willing to train, especially when they're new. And that's something I kind of had to learn too, because you kind of, when I first started, I was just, the pain really wasn't a concern for me, even though I did feel it quite a bit. Because when I first started...
Tough guy.
No, I had to... when I first started training at the dungeon with Klemba and Bresnan...
Oh, Jesus, there you go.
Klemba was going after his first Worlds in Italy. And he told me, he goes, dude, it's not going to be fun. It's not going to be fun here. And I'm like, oh, okay. I don't know what that means, but okay. So I remember we used to pull just like he was okay with me. He wasn't abusive or anything, but we'd pull hard, and none of these guys complained really. So I was like, if they're not complaining, I'm definitely not complaining. And I remember we would go for a month in a row. We would hit a tournament and pull the next day 4 times in a row, and it was I remember being like, dude, you talking about waking up and thinking I should go to the hospital. I remember waking up in the middle of the night and being like, dude, I had to put 2 pillows on my arm like that just to be able to even lay down. And I remember really specifically, he won his title that year, and he came back and he was kind of, he'd just been on vacation. He spent 2 weeks there in Italy, and he comes back, and I remember we were at practice maybe 2 weeks later, and he said ow to something, and I was like, but wait, these guys were in pain too? I remember realizing, he feels pain too. Okay, cool. Yeah. And that's when I kind of realized, oh, okay, cool. These guys are kind of human. So maybe I was pushing myself pretty hard, that kind of thing. But
you never realize it. It's funny that you say that, John, because I have been training like crazy the last 3.5 months, and I've stopped everything except really light recovery work, and I feel amazing, man. My arms don't hurt, my shoulders don't hurt, my wrists don't hurt. It's I can't remember the last time that I wasn't just why does everything on my body hurt at all times?
Yeah.
So it's incredible. It's just this is amazing, man,
Yeah.
So it's just cool. You forget what the sport does to you. I mean, every sport does. Any kind of serious athlete's gonna commit to a certain level of pain that they walk around with 24/7.
For sure.
But we forget in arm wrestling how much pain it actually does cause.
Yeah, you just get adapted to it. And like I remember Christian Binney telling me that maybe it was at the AAA Nationals. I was a novice, and I remember him telling me that because I was like, dude, you adapt pretty quick to this pain, right? Like, every new guy asks like, how long does it hurt for? Because my teammates aren't telling me anything. So I remember asking him that, and he's like, well, it's 50-50. I go, what do you mean? He goes, you will adapt to the pain, but really what you do is you just get used to it. It's always there, but you just don't care anymore. And I remember I've always thought of that, and it's really true because, there are times, man, where in life I hurt. Like I was just telling my guys yesterday, I went into practice, and I'm like, dude, my wrist is messed up. Like I'll pull, but I might have to go with straps. I probably can't hook. Like my left wrist is banged up bad. And I get on the table, I feel great. Everything in life hurts. Every single movement in my wrist. If I just do this, that hurts real bad. But if I get on the table, I feel fine. And it's like, you just get in that mode of like, for me anyway, where, and this is not at all good advice, but this is how I do it. If I feel pain, especially on the table, like for me, I just view pain very like medically, like where pain is a warning, right? Pain's a warning signal that something's wrong, something's not right. I know it's not right. I know I'm messed up. Like I know what I'm doing. Like I know, so I don't be too concerned about it. Now that's not a good advice for a new guy, so don't listen to that. It's not even really good advice for anybody, probably, but
no, it isn't.
No, but that is how I think of it. Like where, okay, I walk into a practice. It might take me 10 minutes to be able to pull real hard because my elbows are so shot. Especially if I'm training 4 or 5 times a week. But after that 10 minutes, I'm good. I can pull hard. So there are times where I could easily be like, dude, I'm just too sore to go to practice. I can't do it. Like I'm just gonna take a day or whatever, and it would be a day that I missed. And when because I've never been to a training where I walked away where I'm like, yeah, I shouldn't have done that. I just never have. So maybe it doesn't mean you don't have to pull 100%. Maybe you pull 50%. If you got really good training partners who will, go into a certain position for a while, like, maybe hold for a couple minutes at 50% just to get a good burn. Like that is worth it. And that's really,
that is such an important part and underrated part of training. It's like you actually, I think, you're the guy who really convinced me that was a good way to train because that's how you always train. And I was like, I think he's onto something. And then, I was listening to Devin and I was like, okay, John Brown and Devin. And since you guys are basically equal in terms of arm wrestling skills and ability, I was like, I got to listen to these guys. And I think it's incredible because the elbow pain you're talking about, yes, if you get by the first 5-6 minutes warm-up pain that everybody has, you can pull slow in the center of the table for so much longer than you can do pin fests. So if you go into a training session and you just sit there in the middle of the table and just drain the hell out of each other, then that's the kind of stuff you can do 3 or 4 times a week. When people ask us, how do we do it? That's how you do it. You don't try to rip everybody over every time. It's incredibly valuable. I think it's amazing for your endurance and in your strength level in general, and especially arm wrestling position. We talk about defensive hooks and stuff like that. When you're sitting in the defensive hook for 5 minutes with somebody, and at the end of it, my son, who's 9, could come over and easily beat me, your body is going to respond to that in an extremely positive way.
Yeah, and when I went from, because really, when I started getting better, like where I could like really tell, okay, I broke past this certain level, and like the longer you do it, I think it takes a little while longer. Like it'll be 3 months later, you'll be like, oh, my top roll's like 1% better now. Like it just the jumps get a lot smaller. But I remember making a pretty big jump when I stopped listening to what everybody was saying, and it was like, okay, I got enough experience, I know myself well enough. Am I willing to risk trying out this thing where it's just like I'm just gonna pull all the time? That's all I'm gonna do. I'm just going to not, like, if somebody says that's too much, I'm going to be like, no, it's not. I'm just going to, I'm just going to do it anyway. And I'll just take whatever criticism. Because there were people that were telling me, like, you just can't do it. You're going to walk away different. You know what I mean? And so it's like, I'll just try it. Like, it can't be that bad. And that's when it worked. I mean? Everybody is different. Some people train once every 3 weeks, and they train a lot in the gym, and they're phenomenal. And some people don't. I think everybody is completely different. Everybody gets a different satisfaction out of the sport too. Some guys get a lot of satisfaction out of just, of the training. Some of this is like the competition and all that. It's great too, of course. And you want to be able to like really showcase the fruits of your labor. You don't want to work hard at this for nothing.
Mm-hmm.
But you also, like, for me, like, this is just part of my life. This is like who I am now. Like, it would be a weird life without arm wrestling. And like, it's not like, because one of my training partners that asked me recently, like, do you ever have to force yourself to go to practice? As much as you drive, as much as you train, like, because Tuesdays I have to drive after work to go to practice. Thursdays I drive after work to go to practice. I'm setting up practice on Saturday, sometimes on Sunday, sometimes on Wednesday, whatever, And I'm like, no. If I think about it, I don't. That whole motivation thing. Like, I need more motivation to go to work. To be honest with you, like, dude, all I want, like, that was why it was so hard for me in school. All I wanted to do was play guitar when I was in school. That's all I wanted to do. Fuck, math. I don't care about math. I want to play guitar. And I'm the same way at 30 years old with arm wrestling. Dude, I don't want to go to work, but I'll pull all day long. I can't wait to get out of work to go pull.
It's a fascinating thing. One thing about this show, which, I mean, it's really been educational in many ways for me personally, but other people have said the same thing. I mean, you take people like Devin and Matt Mask and on contrasting styles with people like, Travis, whereas Devin and Matt Mask are spending as much time as they possibly can on the table pulling people and completely focused on that versus, Travis, who basically, according to him, hardly ever practices because it's bad for his psychological strength or what have you, and instead just gets as strong as he possibly can and has an incredibly dominating move. And so they both have reached, all three of them have reached, maximum level in this sport in completely different trajectories. So, I mean, it's like, so that's one thing I've learned is that it's not necessarily what you specifically do. I mean, you find what works for your body and then you commit to it 100% and believe in it, and it's gonna have impact. Doesn't mean everybody's going to be Muhammad Ali, but, I mean, you're going to have a lot of success if you commit and you stick with it.
Yeah, it's like, I'll get questions sometimes where, people would just ask me, like, general, like, I'm doing this, is that good? Is that good enough? And I'm like, don't ask me, dude. Honestly, like, it might be all that you can do right now. Like, especially, like, with how long people have been in the sport, you can't just go and, like, dude, there's no way I could train like I do now when I was a year in the sport. I would have gotten injured. Something would have let go. I'm a lot more conditioned now. There's a lot more scar tissue. There's a lot more structure. There's a lot more intelligence in the sport than I had, at 7 years than I did at 1. So there's a lot of different changes, but dude, if you're like in this thing where you're going, man, I think like I know I can train more, then go ahead and try. Mm-hmm. You might go, fuck, I don't know if I can, but that's fine. Like every once in a while to dip your toe into like massive overtraining, I think is actually great. Mm-hmm. I just really do. I think even if like you're not the same for a couple weeks, pick a time where you're not really competing that much. Like maybe you got a couple months before a tournament, so you have like a good time to like be able to kind of ramp back down for competition. Because you do, if you're trying to hit a tournament that's really important to you, you should probably try to be your best.
Well, not only that, John, but in terms of sports science, that's basically what's behind things. Like we talk about the conjugate method on here several times. In CrossFit, their entire mentality is based on having a divergent style of training, where you don't get used to doing the same thing over and over again. So like you said, we're trying to push the red line once in a while, and Matt Mask was just chiming in saying, listen to your body and it'll tell you what it needs. And he's right. So you can, as you become more accustomed to what your body can handle and, the limits that you have, then you also become, it's easier to push them within, a reasonable limit. So you're not, going to get injured, but you can certainly push yourself a little bit further, training by training in different directions, and all of that pays massive dividends. I mean, that's why people that run marathons do hill sprints. They're not going to be sprinting on hills when they're out there doing a marathon, but just expanding the way they use their leg muscles in an unusual way gives them an overall higher level of strength. So same thing with arm wrestling. So what we do, you're doing a lot of table time, and then suddenly you take 2 weeks and you focus on nothing but heavy lifting. When you go back to the table, it's going to feel like you have a completely different arm up there. And so if you do that kind of stuff, and like Matt just said, listening to your body, you're going to find directions that you didn't know existed, and you're going to find avenues of training that you didn't think you could reach just because you did nothing but change up what you're doing.
Yeah, I think the way I think about it as well is work capacity versus like the work done. Meaning, like, if I'm far out from a tournament, there isn't enough things I can do. Like, I want my body to be able to do anything I want it to do at a high level and not be broken down. And, like, of course, the goal is to really get broken down, so it's kind of like that weird, cross section or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But work capacity might come into like I ride bike too now, and going on long trips, just to be able to work up, some good, lung capacity, to be able to eat like I want to eat in order to be able to repair, and train as much as I want. As like, even if it's like, dude, I'm 90% right now at the best, and still training, like, because I'm not really trying to build up my maximum level of strength. I'm trying to build up my work capacity, so my ability to do as much work as I can and get out of bed the next day. And that might be hard to do. And then as it gets close, you kind of focus that, right? You focus it into a specific. So like, I think of like my work capacity as the sun, and then I think of the tournament as a magnifying glass. And I want to take all that energy and just burn it right into like an ant.
I was about to say, does that mean all your competitors are ants?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
And
now we know what kind of child you were, John.
You're
getting some visits from social services at your house.
Not a bright one, but yeah, that's how I think of it. I want to take like this energy, this huge amount of energy that everybody just kind of like goes, yeah, the sun's kind of warm, yeah, and then when you focus it, it's like, oh, that could burn through a wall, like if you focus that thing hard enough. So that's, kind of how I view training, where it's just building up your body's ability to take an ass whipping so that you can really focus it into being this thing that does one thing really well. And it's hopefully going like this, my body does that really well, like really fast. And I don't know if that's, it works for me anyway.
Yeah. Well, again, we're reiterating the same point as understanding your body and how to make it function properly. Evan is watching right now from Canada, I just noticed, and he reminded me of watching him at that tournament that we were at down in Mohegan Sun, although it was a small tournament. Evan is a guy that I saw pull in many different ways, and one of the things I liked about him is that he allowed people to try a lot of different techniques on him, and then he worked on adjusting from the techniques that they attempted. And that's in a tournament. So some of these people he knew, so he probably knows whether he can beat them or not. And others he didn't know. So it's like just having the guts to do that kind of stuff in a live situation. You're not going to win that particular tournament, but then when he goes to, Canada's provincials where it really matters, those kinds of steps that you took in live competition are going to pay dividends later. So, having the guts to try stuff in a tournament, like for me, hooking after years of top rolling, it takes a certain amount of courage, I guess, and you have to be willing to get your ass kicked a number of times as a result, because all the lessons that I learned on how to start in a top roll, I have to relearn and stop, starting in a hook or a press, that kind of stuff. So, I think being courageous in the way that you train and the way you compete is also essential to keep you from getting stagnant, which is something you see with a lot of really high quality pullers that haven't really changed their technique that much and have as a result fallen off, even though their strength level and their original technique is still very strong.
Yeah, and it's actually a funny thing that you brought up, where really forcing yourself to switch. In 2012, I had to do that, and I don't think it's a story that anybody but my old training partners know, and they probably forgot by now. It's 4 years ago. That's a lot of tournaments, but I think it was Connecticut States. It was one of the Connecticut tournaments that Chris Ganji used to put on, and I used to have a decent hook at the time. I had a decent hook, and I never used it in a tournament. For some reason, it was always like, if I go into a hook, I'm going to lose, and it was probably because early on, especially, my arm strength was really bad. So I was like, I'm just gonna, if I go inside, I'm gonna lose. I would just always go to top roll, even if like the guy I was pulling wasn't so good in the hook.
Mm-hmm.
So I told him, like, I'm gonna enter a bunch of classes and I'm gonna do nothing right-handed but hook, no matter who it is. I'm gonna grab low and I'm gonna hook, and I did the whole tournament, and I had some success and I took a lot of ass whippings, and because I was doing it even the heavier classes, but I was like, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna force myself to do it. And at the end of that tournament, I'm like, I'm never going to be afraid to hook if I have to again. So sometimes it is something where you're going to like, okay, I'm going to invest this $20 entry fee into not being, having experience in this one thing. And it's going to change the rest of my tournaments to some degree. But it's worth that $20 entry fee to do that. And, who knows? I mean, I don't think I did any worse than I would have done in my own weight class doing that. So it probably wasn't even like really a bunch of a risk as far as like winning or losing. But those things do have to happen, and it starts with having the bravery or whatever to do it in training.
It's either bravery or stupidity. I like to say bravery because it makes us sound better.
It makes me feel better.
It definitely could be just stupidity. So let's be clear about that. It's one or the other. It may be both. It's possible both.
I tell all the rookies that come to train with me, like when we're at practice, I go, "This is the place to look stupid, not the tournament. You look dumb here. Totally true. You look dumb here, so we don't look dumb at the tournament."
Yeah, that's 100% true. Let's see. Top rowing posting exercise. My favorite, to be honest with you, top row posting exercise is on the table. Halfway through practice when people are starting to get tired, is I like to just get in a top roll and let a whole different array of people hit as hard as they can or try their full speed hook or press and all that kind of stuff, and I just practice modulating the posting and back pressure, both of those, adjusting it on the fly based on how they hit, because I still do exercise where I'm pulling a rope like this, that kind of stuff, to practice back pressure and dropping low to do the posting stuff, but it's not as valuable, in my opinion, because I listen to people smarter than me on this show, as actually having it happen in a practice situation, which is not a tournament, where you can actually feel what posting and what back pressure feels like against various styles and various people, and then adjusting to it. I think that's incredibly valuable. And I mean, if you work with your partners, then don't just flash me 25 times if you're dealing, if I'm pulling Chris Burns or something. But, just get used to that feeling. So then you get more comfortable posting when someone's coming at you with a strong hook or press or another top roll. So I think that's the best, in my opinion. That's the one that I feel like I'm getting the most gains from.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I have posting off the table. Not training on the table. It's just simple, belt through the very worst situation, which would be right here, on your, right on your hand, where hopefully nobody will ever get. So being able to really, really control weight super high with a super high hand, not letting it drop through this part of your finger right here. So off the table, I think that's the best. On the table, honestly, it's maintaining the same position, with, not losing your posting part of your hand. And honestly, the thing that makes me think about the post the hardest is trying to basically just hammer curl, lock and hammer curl my opponent's elbow off the pad. That's exactly what I look at. And I'll tell my guys, like, I'm going to try to lift your elbow up slow. And also, I think one part that's missing with a lot of posters who have probably the great ability to post, but they don't do it quite right, is actually incorporating a little bit of your front delt. So when you lock in and you drop down, the weight on your elbow will hold your elbow down. So you can actually push up a bit, and it'll make your elbow come forward, so you got to be careful about not being too far in the front. But it will really push your arm and your hand through their hand. Because I like to think of their hand as something that's just like a machine that's holding me down. So I'm trying to push through it. And that's the whole point of the post, really, is to force their hand down and your hand up. So I just really think of it that way. And also, don't hold on so hard. If you're trying to post, just have your fingers down, but they're not squeezing anything. A lot of guys post real hard and they hold on so hard that they're actually stopping themselves from doing the move right. So, float those fingers, go up and try to lift your training partner's elbow off the pad. It's going to be a great back pressure exercise for them too, to even hold it down. So, I think that's the best. And also, if you got a great training partner who's a lot stronger than you, post hard and have them grab a hold of you and drag down. It's a great negative exercise for posting, and there's no better, to be able to post as hard as you can and have somebody rip it open and then rip it open, nice and slow. I think that's, perfect. I think the best exercise is really doing it, like you said,
It's true of a lot of things. I mean, we basically constantly are trying to simulate arm wrestling situations off table with all the different tricky exercises we do and the way we use machines and manners they weren't designed to do. But, at the end of the day, if you can train 3 times or 4 times a week on a table, do all that stuff on the table, with other people, because it's gonna pay better dividends. Like if you go, again, we always bring this back to martial arts, but it's kind of, there's many similarities.
So
if you go to
anybody who's been in martial arts knows it's very similar.
Yeah. You spend your time in judo doing randori and sparring. That's where you spend the most. You spend a small amount of time in technique and some conditioning, but they generally tell you to do the conditioning somewhere else. So when you come to this, the dojo, you can fight. That's how you're going to get better. Same thing with, boxing, wrestling, any of those sports. You get better by doing it. So if you can work on your weaknesses with somebody who is an expert in the things that you suck at, it's going to help you get better a lot more quickly. But I understand not everybody has the ability, to pull frequently. And if you don't, exercises, Devin showed a whole bunch of cool stuff that he does, in my opinion. So I'd watch that one again, because that was like a technique department store. And then a couple of the other people we talked to as well have done all kinds of stuff with, I'm trying to remember, there was somebody else who gave us just there was so much stuff, I was writing it down and listening, and like Rob Belay does, he listens to this show 5 times and takes notes and then commits it to memory and tattoos it on his belly so he won't ever forget.
Yeah, we're very sorry to your girlfriend, by the way.
But the information's out there, and it basically is a question of finding the things that really feel like they're working for you and sticking with them.
Yeah.
And that's the process I'm in. I'm like at the medium stage in terms of skill level as an arm wrestler. I feel like the first 5 years you're still trying to figure it out. And even though I arm wrestled for a while when I was younger, the game has changed a lot since then, and everybody's a lot better now. And people are stronger and bigger, and they've been arm wrestling for 30 years straight, so I suck compared to them. But sharing my learning process with you guys is, actually all of us doing it, on the internet like we're doing now and talking to all these people. We're increasing all of our knowledge bases, so we'll get better faster, unlike the few people out there in the world who don't listen to this show yet. I feel bad for them.
Awful. Terrible.
It's really, but they know where to find us, so we're here when they need us.
Exactly. And Derek Smith asked, what's my final goal in arm wrestling? I don't have one. To be honest with you, it's just to get better. I figure if I can keep getting better every single day, then eventually I'll be really good. So just get as good as I can while staying as healthy as I can, and just try to maintain it as long as I can. I hope at some point when I don't feel like doing this anymore, there'll be an avenue for me to teach it legitimately. That'd be cool. It'd be nice, in 30 years or whatever, if there was actual dojos for arm wrestling. How cool would that be?
That would be cool as hell.
Seriously, right? Yeah. So, I think it's never not going to be a part of my life. So I'll probably be that old crotchety guy who has tables at his house and just has young guys come over, and I tell them how much they suck.
Are you talking about Fitzy?
No. No, but, no, because Fitzy could still beat most of the guys who come over.
That's the best part about Fitzy, because he is in his 60s now, and he is crotchety. And
he always has been, though.
He wears the golf shirt a lot of times now, and then he's just one of those guys that breaks people's hearts, because if they haven't been arm wrestling in 30 years, they don't know who he is. They don't realize how good he was for a long period of time. And even though he doesn't compete a lot anymore, he still is at a lot of tournaments, and he'll pull anybody afterwards. And you see all these 250, 260 pound, really heavily muscled monsters come up to him, and he just rips them over, and they just have this look on their face what the fuck was that? Who the hell's this old guy? And he just smiles at him. It's blam, 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 then he walks away. It's awesome.
Yeah, he's a bad man.
You could be that guy.
Yeah, someday.
Well, you're halfway there, man. You're
Yes,
halfway there.
That's it. Been a short halfway mark, too. So, we got a question here. I'm reading questions, guys. This is really
This
interesting.
is so cool. It's like worlds are colliding here, man.
Okay, each person's different. Talking about technique versus strength. What's the opinion? I think in the. Go ahead, Josh.
My opinion is that in your first year, technique dominates. In your second through fifth year, it really becomes much more about strength. And then as the strength level begins to equalize at the upper echelon, technique becomes much more important again. And that's a big generalization, but that's my basic opinion on it.
Yeah, I think in the novice class and even somewhat in the amateur class, like technique will crush. You can get a lot stronger dudes that lose in a novice tournament because they don't know how to pull. And there's some little skinny fast kid who knows how to arm wrestle and wins. And then I think as you get to the open class and the more elite stuff, you need to be strong. Because I'll tell you what, I know how to top roll Tim Bresnan, but I ain't gonna do it. So you need to be strong enough to do it, because really at the higher levels, everybody knows how to arm wrestle. It's not this like magic trick anymore. Because they know the magic trick too, and
Right.
they have a better repertoire than you do too. So you just need to be strong, for sure.
I compare it to when you first learn to play chess, and you can trick people with like those 3 or 5 or 7 move checkmates. And then, 2 weeks later when they learn how to play chess, you can't do it anymore. And, in arm wrestling, it lasts a little bit longer than a few weeks, but it's the same thing. You can pull a trick on somebody only so many times before they figure out what you're doing and how to stop it with their superior strength. So, and I think that's what really stopped me the first time I started arm wrestling, is because I was very tall and very thin. And I had a really dominant top roll, but in terms of like bicep and forearm strength, it wasn't impressive, I don't think. I mean, I could do a lot of pull-ups, and I probably would have been a good climber, but in terms of like brute force and raw power, I didn't have a lot. And so I think, and I was young, and I may still be stupid, but I think I was even stupider then. So I didn't really figure it out that, these guys who were stronger than me basically had figured out how to open my combination lock, and that was it. And then it just got to the point where I was getting beat by the same guys over and over again. And I don't have a specific memory of this, but what I think happened is I was like, I suck now. Everybody's smoking me. I'm going to go do something else.
Yep.
And the reality is what I should have done was start to hook and started to focus on strength building instead of just trying to be a better and better top roller.
Yeah. Do you think in your earlier years that, like, say if somebody would have told you, listen, man, you got this great move, you got the potential to be great everywhere, it's going to take like 3 years for you to really start breaking that wall of like this new move working for you? Would you have back then been like 3 years? That's forever.
Yeah. Probably.
Right.
As a teenager.
Yeah.
I probably would have been like, screw you, you don't know what you're talking about. I won the New England Championships with this top
Fuck
roll.
you,
So,
man.
that's probably what I would have said.
Yeah.
Because that was stupid.
You know,
And
the
like
thing
I
is,
said, I
like,
may
yeah,
still be. But
you get older, man, and like, even at like, I'm still young, but like 3 years is so short. You know, like I remember so clearly my first year in the sport. And, 3 years seems like yesterday. So, now if someone's like, hey, man, it's going to take like a couple of years for you to develop this move, I'm like, cool. All right. No problem. You know what I mean? And I'll also be like, I'm going to see if I can do it faster, of course, because that's this whole game is to, get better faster than everybody else. That's why we talk about doing your own thing. If you do.
Scott Wynn, sorry, go ahead.
No,
Sean.
that's fine. I'm done.
Scott Wynn just posted knowledge, strength, endurance, recovery, and lots of patience. And that's, if you're going to try to encapsulate how to become a better arm wrestler in one sentence, that's a pretty good way to do it. Especially the last part, patience.
For sure.
Yeah. It's patience with getting your ego smacked around too, because you're going to get beat by people over and over and over and over again. And if your ego isn't rock solid, that's going to be tough, especially if you're abandoning your number one move to try to expand your strength or your knowledge base or whatever. You have to be willing to, get embarrassed and get beat and all that kind of stuff, and just let it roll off your back.
Yeah, number one advice for a new guy who's having a hard time with that is just find something to like other than winning. Find something to love about the sport, like other than winning, and those years will go by so fast. But if you're really focused on like, dude, I can't beat anybody. Like if you're focused on that, it's gonna be 365 days of terror in 1 year. Whereas if you like it, you can't wait to get back next week. So it's gonna be 52 practices instead of 365 days of terror. Just of nightmares. So if you really learn how to like it, dude, I mean, you think about a 2-year span. If you practice once a week, never taking a break, which everybody usually takes, 1 or 2 weeks here or there. It's 104 practices, which is very little. And that's something I learned from the great Norm Devio. He told me early on, he goes, man, we get to practice once a week most of the time. Basketball players can shoot free throws every day. No wonder they get good so quick. And I went, damn, Norm. This guy might know what he's talking about. This guy might know what he's talking about. Right, exactly. And then I tell people now, I'm like, dude, I've done like 20 years worth of training.
Yeah.
If you go by that timeline. So for me, it works anyway.
It's working for a lot of people. I think it's, people have the conventional wisdom was that you can't do that, that our bodies can't take it. And that's proven, if you're smart about it and you take your time easing into it, it's proven to not be true. So the real question for me is the European style of training, which has dominated, certainly at Worlds, which is gym, every once in a while pull. I wonder if that's going to start to be replaced as people get more arm wrestling specific strength just by pulling intensely over and over and over again. If I was going to bet on which one would win out eventually, I would bet that the Devin Lorette style of training on the table every day eventually would be superlative.
Yeah, I think what'll probably happen was what usually happens with everything, where you have this conventional thing that goes one way, and then it goes completely the other way, and then it ends up right here, right in the middle, right where it was before. I think you'll have probably, of course, there's always going to be like the extremes, which are what you should never pay attention to, in my opinion. There's the guys who only train weights, and they do great. There's guys that only train on the table, they do great. And I think most of the populace falls right in the center. But the thing is, the guys who are on the extremes, they get the attention. So like everybody listened to Brzezinski and how he trained forever. And he's like, yeah, I train once a week on the table, and then I'm kind of like moderate weights. And we're like, what? So that's how you become a great arm wrestler? And it's like, yeah, that's how he did. But I'll take myself. What the fuck would make me think I'm anything like John Brzezinski? Genetically. This dude is built for athletics. Like, not even just strength. That dude is just built for athletics. He's got phenomenal, genetics for sports activities. I don't. So I need to do something different than him, because if I do what he did, I'll never be there. My body's not going to adapt. Like, his body is like literally begging for him to do something like that. Mine is like, fuck you, dude. I don't want to do this. And I have to like beat it in submission by being on the table all the time. So I just have to force it to happen. Like, I'm nothing like Brzezinski, so why would I ever train like him? So that's just back to that whole thing. Like, you like, well, I want to be like John Brzezinski. No, be like yourself, man, and find out who you are. Because everybody's a little different. You're gonna find your own little path, and then once you find it, you're gonna go, oh shit, I wish I would have found this 5 years ago.
Yeah, Brzezinski is really an anomaly in so many ways. I mean, he was pulling back when I, started, and Ron Bath had been very dominant for quite a while. He was like, similar to John Brzezinski in terms of his, unquestionable superiority. And then, and Johnny Walker, and then Brzezinski started coming in, and Jesus Christ, how many athletes in any sports have had a period of dominance as long or as incredibly dominant as he had? I have a couple of friends that said they got into the sport because like, how can the best arm wrestler in the entire world be 200 pounds? It's just like, it didn't compute that somebody could be that strong to stop, 400 pounders and power lifters and world's strongest man competitors and all that kind of stuff. So there's a fascinating aspect to it, I think, which, draws a lot of us to the sport to begin with.
Well, that's what drove so many people to the UFC. Like when Gracie's coming through, and he's tying these huge guys into pretzels, and then people are like, "What the fuck? This guy weighs 75 pounds more than that dude."
And now everybody does jiu-jitsu. It's like just not even a question. If you're gonna do MMA, you're gonna study jiu-jitsu. So he basically, changed the entire landscape of pit fighting or underground fighting at that point. So
yeah, it takes this idea of, which it is, it's a strength sport what we do, but it's also this unique mixture of this art form. Mm-hmm. And once you combine the two, and really, like, we don't even really, let's be honest, like, we still don't have this great scientific reason as to why arm wrestlers are strong the way they are. Like, we go, yeah, it's tendon strength, it's this strength, but really, like, is that what it is, really? Or is it efficiency, or is it, what is it exactly?
I think my opinion on it, and this is based on nothing, is that it is partially tendon strength, but I think that it comes down to the structural integrity, which is something I always am watching in really successful arm wrestlers and talking about, because some people can arm wrestle with their entire body using every muscle, and those people tend to dominate, and other people don't. So I feel like if you have the ability to integrate naturally, and I think it's probably people, Adam Barrett's a good example, who can also punch really hard, because it's the same kind of thing, you're incorporating that whipping motion that you use in a hit, or, a right cross or an uppercut or whatever. So if you're someone who's coordinated and can use all their muscles together like that, you're probably going to be pretty good at arm wrestling. And there's not a lot of sports that require that kind of explosive thing other than boxing. And in boxing, the reason I mentioned boxing over other styles is that it's you can only hit with your hands. So it's similar to us. The fight is happening with the arms.
Exactly. Yeah, I think we're like in the infancy right now of knowledge. Like as far as scientific knowledge, how to, like, really what's going on with the body, which is really cool, because, like, that's where the most growth comes from too. And
we're in on the ground floor, so we're probably going to be famous like Watson and Crick discovering the double helix. In a few years, we're going to be accepting Nobel Prizes for arm wrestling excellence.
I hope so.
They have that.
I've already written the speech.
Well, I'm going to have to edit that. You're going to have to send that over to me as soon as possible. So look, guys, we got 3 cool shows coming up. Next week we have Cobra Rhodes Wednesday night, and then the week after that is the World Championships. I'm going to be in Bulgaria. We're going to figure out what's going on with that week. The week following that is Alan Fisher. So he's going to be on. And then on October 19th, we're going to have that really special show that I'm very excited about, especially for all you arm wrestlers out there that don't have insurance. We're going to have 2 physical therapists from Tufts Medical School on with us for 90 minutes, and they're going to have a table set up in the back so they can demonstrate physical therapy techniques for various arm wrestling injuries. So I definitely recommend that you guys all check that show out. That's going to be October 19th again.
I'm looking forward to learning from that one.
Yeah, that's going to be a good one. And so that's what's coming up. And we're working on John Brzenk. If you guys know him, tell him that we're not jerks and he should come on the show.
Yeah.
We're trying to get him and Steve Kaplan on, and hasn't been easy to get either of them. So once they realize we're not total idiots, we might be somewhat idiots. We're not complete idiots.
Yeah, we're fun idiots. At least. I mean, we're not jerk idiots.
Exactly. So
yeah, that's it. It's been pretty fun.
Yes.
Told you we could do it, Josh.
Every once in a while, I like the shows with no guests. We can pretend people hate us for 1 hour every couple months or something like that.
Right. Yeah. As you guys can see, the episode name is No One this week.
No one.
Nobody.
The next one's going to have to be No One Part 2.
Yeah, there you go. We can have we can have a running series here. All right, fellas. Peace.
Adios.